How's it going, everyone? My name is Amos, and welcome to part 2 in a 2-part series where we are grading, evaluating, and ranking 20 different juicy dividend-paying stocks. And we're going to continue by placing UnitedHealth into their proper respective category. So, when it comes to UnitedHealth, I think they're the definition of what makes a very balanced, juicy dividend payer. Not only are their numbers growing across the board, but their dividend profile is just simply amazing. And having said that, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I put thousands of dollars into UnitedHealth at about $2.79 a share, $2.65 a share. I dollar cost averaged during their recent sell-off. I think UnitedHealth objectively is an A. Now, how we feel about them, our opinions, yes, we could put them into the F tier for sure. Or some of us could put them into the C tier. But on paper, if you were to remove the name UnitedHealth and you were to just look at their numbers, there's no arguing here. It's objectively a magnificent dividend compounder with cheese. I mean, this is just crazy, right? So I would argue UnitedHealth is an A. And the next company that we are going to be looking at is Western Union, ticker symbol WU. It always reminds me of a Chinese person's last name, WU. Anyways, year to date, it's not going to be a pretty picture. Get ready. They're down by 18.2%. By the way, in my head, I see this as negative 18.2%. However, when I verbally say it, I see that it's down, and then I say what's in my head, so I'm saying a double negative. They're down by negative 18. So they're down by 18.2%, or they're negative 18.2%. Sometimes I just talk a little too fast for my brain to keep up. And Western Union provides a money transfer service when physical cash was king. And I would also argue digital processing and digital transfers seem to be more relevant going forward. Now, if you want the full deep dive into Western Union, it's funny to say, but I made an analysis video for them. You should watch it. It's pretty informative. So their trading multiple, this might be the lowest one I have seen this year. I analyze and I look at stocks all day long, every week. Doesn't matter if it's Halloween or my birthday, I'm always looking at stocks. This might be the lowest one that I've seen all year. Not all time, because I did see a company that had a PE of a 1, but a 3.2, that means the market expects you to just fall on over and croak. But I will say this, in the recent days, they are having a small rally. They're up by 2.7%, but grand scheme of things, a company that used to be $10 a share, now it's $8.60, red. When we take a look at their financials, it's not a pretty picture. It's just been consistently falling year over year. All right, it's not even flat, it's just straight up falling. And we think about their earnings per share, which is the bottom line per share or the profits per share. Now they're in the business of improving their margins. And I would argue their earnings per share looks good, right? The fact that their revenue is shrinking, but their net income is increasing is kind of impressive. It's kind of like what Altria is executing right now. And when we jump on over to their dividend profile, are they growing it? No. At 10.8% dividend yield with a qualified dividend payout, it's almost in that BDC, business development company territory. It's kind of crazy to see. But what's not so crazy is their dividend payment has been stuck at 23 cents per quarter since 2021. It's not growing, and I don't think it's going to grow anytime soon, especially with their revenue shrinking as fast as it is right now. So let's take a look at it past 5 years. My goodness, negative 63%. It used to be $22 a share. If they continue this trend, maybe in the next 3 to 4 years, they'll be $4 a share. Because based on their past performance, that seems to be plausible. So when it comes to Western Union, I think their future looks pretty dark. I think they're way too late to the game of trying to become the next PayPal. And even if they do become the next PayPal, it makes no sense to me why PayPal has a PE ratio of 15. I mean, this is just crazy to see. So even if Western Union does become a digital processing, cash transfer kind of a company like PayPal, their future just does not look bright whatsoever. And their numbers are just, yeah. I mean, the redeeming factor here, the dividend yield being just shy of 11%, I mean, it does seem good on surface value, but I think Western Union, friends and family, I mean, I hate to say this, I think it's a yield trap. You invest into them for that high dividend yield, but your capital, your principal amount, your portfolio is going to continue to drop and shrink. So it's going to drop by negative 63%. So if you invested like, I don't know, $100,000 into them, you're going to have $40,000 by the end of 4 or 5 years, even though you're getting a really good dividend from them. So it's almost like it doesn't make sense mathematically for me. The next company is going to be Lockheed Martin, ticker symbol LMT, and they're the biggest American defense company when it comes to the territory of market capitalization, $106 billion. And Lockheed Martin is the manufacturer for the United States Air Force's fleet of fighter jets. Very important for our defense and military. Year to date, they're down by negative 6%. They did have a really steep drop off back in July of 22. They dropped to $4.10 a share, and they have just been rebounding since then. Past 1 month, they're up by 8%. Take a look at their financials. Revenue looks pretty good. I mean, it's slow and steady, as it should be as a defense contractor that has a backlog of contracts of unrealized revenue potential. By the way, I just released a video talking about the military stocks industry. Go and watch that video if you want my more elaborate thoughts on Lockheed Martin. But anyways, their earnings per share, $17.80. I don't like that it's shrinking, but it's still $17.80. It's a significant amount. Take a look at their dividend profile, just shy of 3%, annual dividend $13, absolutely sustainable, and it's growing at a reasonable rate. Nothing that's bonkers, but a decent number, 4.7%. Dividend history looks pretty darn cute. It's like a new puppy, right? Dude, whenever I think about my dogs getting old, I have 2 dogs. Whenever I think about them aging and that time coming to when they have to be put down, I get so freaking sad and emotional. I try not to think about it because they're really young, right? They're like 4 years old or whatever. But having lost a dog before, dude, it's for a man especially, I think it's one of the top 5 worst feelings and experiences that you can go through. And I think experiencing the loss of a dog, especially if you treat it like a family member and a best friend, I think it matures you in a way, because once you experience that kind of heartbreak, it's almost like, how could the world ever hurt me after having been so hurt by losing someone that I love? But anyways, $3.30 every quarter, sustainable, and it's growing at a very decent rate. Their economic moat, their future, to me, I think it's pretty darn bright. Obviously, their earnings per share right now went off a nosedive, but taking all of that into account, I would argue they're almost in the same tier as UnitedHealth, but at least UnitedHealth has just positives across the board, right? Except the sentiment and the opinion manner of their company. Well, I guess Lockheed Martin as well. Some people hate them. They're like, oh, they're evil. How could their products do that kind of stuff? So I guess they do have some controversial opinions as well. But their numbers, I can't say they're in the same ballpark. So I think Lockheed Martin would definitely be a B tier. That's a really long logo. Hopefully we don't have too many others that fall in this bucket right here, because there's not much space to work with. And by the way, did you hear very recently Southwest Airlines used to be the airline carrier here in the US where you used to get 2 free checked bags? They got rid of that policy. And now they're implementing a new policy where if you're overweight and you're oversized, you're going to have to buy 2 tickets because you're taking up 2 seats. So I think that's an interesting take, but also the fact that the seats themselves have been shrinking and getting smaller. I'm not that tall. I'm just shy of like 6 feet. But I've noticed that my leg room, no matter what the airline is, it's been getting smaller and smaller. But it's kind of crazy that we're at this point where businesses are like, all right, dude, we're going to have to charge you more. You weigh 450 pounds. You got to pay for 2 seats. So it's kind of crazy to see that. And I think it reminds me of that situation because Lockheed Martin makes jet planes, but they're also taking up a lot of real estate here. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's fair? I don't know. I think it's kind of funny, but I don't really have an opinion of it because I'm kind of a skinny guy, but I digress. Let's jump back to the video. The next one is going to be Kimberly-Clark, ticker symbol KMB, and it's a paper-based CPG that's responsible for manufacturing and selling diapers, feminine products, and tissue, paper towels, and whatnot. Anything that's paper-based. And they're currently 129 a share year to date. They're down by negative 1.4%. I think everybody in the CPG category is just, they're having a rough year because of inflation and the consumers pulling back their spending. So when we take a look at their financials, revenue is relatively flat. I'll give it to them. It's slightly up in a span of 10 years, but not too much growth happening. Take a look at their bottom line per share, and that's where I nod my head. I'm impressed. $7.26. So at least they're improving their profits, despite their revenue being relatively flat. Take a look at their dividend profile, 3.9%. I think this is like the most average looking decent dividend profile, right? Just shy of 4%. The growth rate is almost 1-for-1 for the rate of inflation. Payout says it's sustainable. 53 years of growth. It's not bad. It's not bad. But before I give them a grade, something that I do want to show you is if we zoom out and take a look at the past 5 years, it's negative 17.5%. That is a factor that is going to be weighed against them. And if we take a look at it max, okay, so it's a dividend compounder with cheese. Your money would have 22x'd by investing into Kimberly-Clark at their IPO. I like that, but for the past 5 years, I don't like that. So when it comes to Kimberly-Clark, it kind of reminds me of General Mills, and I think that's probably where they belong, as a C+ type of dividend payer. And the next one is going to be Conagra Brands, ticker symbol CAG, and it's a food CPG that has exposure to gas station snacks, grocery aisle staples, and frozen food. If you go to the frozen food meals section, predominantly made by Conagra Brands. And I would argue frozen meals are probably the way to go for a lot of people who don't have time to pack a lunch for work. Their current trading multiple is an 8. Year to date, they should be down, just like the rest of the CPG. They're down by negative 31%. Financial health, that's not good. For the past few years, it's been shrinking. They reached the high of $12.2 billion back in 2023. Since then, it's been slightly shrinking. And when we take a look at their earnings per share diluted, $2.40, a huge improvement from the year prior. So $2.40. Take a look at their dividend profile. Dividend payout is $1.40, so it's really sustainable. Juicy dividend yield, but it's not growing. Very similar to a few other high dividend payers that we saw earlier. So I want to see this play out visually, but 5 years of growth, now I want to see it play out visually. So it does look like since 2023, the dividend's been kind of stuck in limbo at 35 cents a quarter. Dividend yield is juicy, it's healthy, but it's not growing. And when I think about the future of frozen meals and anything in the grocery store, I'm not going to say that I'm bullish, but I definitely don't think they're going to disappear. So I also think that Conagra is going to be in the C tier. I think there's aspects to like about them, but I definitely don't think their future looks as bright as PepsiCo or as UnitedHealth. But I definitely don't think they're in the same ballpark as Western Union, if that makes sense. And if we jump on over to the next one, it's also going to be a CPG player, and it's known as the Proctor and Gamble company, headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm going to tell you this right now, it's quite possibly one of the best places to work as a product manager in charge of a brand in their huge, gigantic portfolio of brands. They make laundry detergent, shampoo, toothpaste, floss, and etc. And when we take a look at them year to date, they're down by negative 6.3%, just like the other CPG stocks, but they always trade for a premium. Their forward trading multiple is a 22.4, and that's because Procter and Gamble is really high quality. Take a look at their financials. Their revenue has been growing consistently since the beginning of their IPO. I mean, seriously. There are people that put their entire net worth and their retirement money into Procter and Gamble. I am not exaggerating. They treat it as if it's Berkshire Hathaway because there's so many different brands under their umbrella at the grocery store. They see it as a safe place and as a hedge, as a bond or a high yield savings account. When we take a look at their earnings per share, sorry, the sun is getting brighter and brighter. It's like blinding the left side of my face. Right now, it's $6.51. That's been improving consistently since 2019. I would argue their financials so far look pretty darn sweet. It kind of reminds me of UnitedHealth, except with UnitedHealth, the percentage change was more magnificent, right? Take a look at their dividend profile, a 2.7%. We'll give it to them, okay? We'll give it to them. It's a 6.9, but we'll give it 2.7% dividend yield. Absolutely sustainable, and it's growing at a very respectable rate. And they're growing their freaking dividend for 60, that's one of my favorite numbers, 69 years. Guys, I think there's a lot to like about Procter and Gamble, and yes, I am invested into them. Yeah, this is just beautiful, right? So I think when it comes to Procter and Gamble, I mean, I'll say it one more time. Side by side, I think UnitedHealth is slightly better, but they didn't have a single blemish in any of their metrics and criteria because despite economic conditions going forward, Procter and Gamble, they're in the business of selling stuff that we're all going to be buying. It's not like you're going to stop shaving. It's not like you're going to stop brushing your teeth, right? So I think Procter and Gamble, for me, I would argue they belong here in the A tier. Now, the next one we're going to be talking about is Wendy's, ticker symbol WEN, currently trading for about $10.61. And a fun fact about them is they're actually featured in my burger industry breakdown video. Yes, I made a video where I stack and rank every single publicly traded burger stock. It's actually kind of a funny video, but it's really insightful. So if you want to know more about this company, watch that video, but I will say this. Their breakfast biscuit menu, so freaking good. Now, as a guy that's invested into McDonald's, I will give it to them. I think Wendy's breakfast menu takes the cake. Year to date, they're down by 34%. That's a significant amount. When we take a look at their financials, okay, their revenue has been growing consistently since 2017. 2016 was 1.8 million, and they reached that number again in 2022. So they were relatively flat for quite some time, but they figured something out because they're growing now year over year. Okay, so far so good. Let's take a look at their earnings per share. It's kind of flat. It's not really growing. 96 cents a share. And when we take a look at their dividend profile, 56 cents. Okay, so the dividend is sustainable at a 5% dividend yield. So it's juicy, it's sustainable. But it's shrinking by negative 22%. So if we scroll on down, they probably cut their dividend. And yes, they did. They cut their dividend in 2020. And what did I say earlier? If a company cuts their dividend, if they face any more obstacles or speed bumps in the near future, what will they do again? They will cut that dividend. You cut me once, you'll cut me twice. Is that the rule of nipple on the highway? If someone cuts you off in traffic without using the turn signal, they'll probably cut the next person off again, right? So their dividend profile, I mean, despite the fact that this is a beautiful yield, I really hate that in the past 5 years, they cut their dividend twice. So taking all of that into account, I think when it comes to Wendy's, yes, I love their revenue growth. I did not like their earnings per share. I think their future is going to be stable, right? Fast food is not going to go anywhere. But their dividend profile, I think, is the tiebreaker. I think Wendy's is a D plus for me. I think they just missed the mark of being C minus, but I definitely don't think it's an average company because an average company they're not walking around cutting their freaking dividend, right? If you cut the dividend, you cannot be in that C tier for me. Maybe I'm a tough grader, but it's just how I feel. The next one is going to be a CPG company that none of you have ever heard of, and it's Edgewell Personal Care Company. And as the name might imply, they're in the business of selling shaving razors, feminine products for down there, and also sunscreen like Hawaiian Tropic and Banana Boat, which seem to be some of the more popular ones here in the US. Me personally, dude, I don't use American sunscreen. I only use Korean and Japanese sunscreen because it's so much more advanced than the American ones that you slather on your faces. By the way, even the Australian ones are so much better than the American sunscreen. Even the European ones are so much better than the American sunscreen. But anyways, currently $24 a share. Year to date, they're down by negative 28%. Sorry, CPG sector, y'all are suffering. I get it. Wow, their future trading multiple is an 8. Currently, it's an 18, though. Take a look at their financials. Yikers, friends and family, it's stuck at $2 billion for the past 10 years. They just can't seem to find a way to grow their business and the top line. So right off the bat, I'm not too impressed. And wow, when you take a look at their bottom line, this is a rough situation, guys. $64 million of profits. When you break that down to the share level, this is pretty rough. Let's see if their dividend profile looks any better. A 2.5% dividend yield. Okay, we'll give it to them. That's not too bad. Payout ratio is healthy. It's not growing. So what's going on? And it seems like since 2020, they've just been paying the same dividend every 3 months of 15 cents. I think I've seen enough. I think when it comes to Edgewell personal care, I mean, despite their products being good or bad, that's out of the question. If it were just based on the cheese factor and their products being here in the next 20 years and their business quality, I think they would be in the D. But I think once we factor in everything else, I just can't seem to find a reason why this would make sense in anybody's portfolio. I think as an investment, I think Edgewell is just one of those things where you take a cold shower, you look at yourself in the mirror, and your ding-dong is all shriveled up, and you're just like, what am I doing? It's one of those things where Edgewell will just sober you up after a night of drinking because it doesn't make sense. So I think that's our first F of the day. As an investment, I just don't see why anybody would want them. The next one is going to be SiriusXM. Ticker symbol Siri, and it's a satellite-based radio company that also has Pandora, the original Spotify music streaming service. And last I checked, Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company, they own about a third of all the shares outstanding. There's 336 million shares outstanding. Berkshire Hathaway owns about 100 million shares, so it's pretty crazy. I think the takeover is going to happen much sooner than later. Currently $23. Year to date, they're up by 3.6%. When we jump on over to their financials, this is where it gets a little hairy. I think since 2022, $9 billion, their revenue has just been shrinking again and again. It's kind of like Western Union. And when we take a look at their bottom line per share, this is rough. Okay, negative $5.22 a share. It's not a pretty picture when it comes to their financials. What about their dividend profile? 4.6% dividend yield, not available for the payout ratio because it's a negative. Dividend growth is 1.5%. And when it comes to the cheese factor, this is what I'm going to say about SiriusXM. I think they have so much potential, right? Music streaming, here today, here tomorrow, but it's the way that they're doing it. I think their current business model is just outdated because SiriusXM, I made a deep dive analysis video talking about it. It's like 45 minutes long, but I'll give you an executive summary. It's correlated to new car sales. Because when you purchase a new vehicle here in the US, you usually get like a 1 or a 3-month free trial for SiriusXM. And their business model is that you're going to end up continuing to use SiriusXM once you see how awesome it is when you get ad-free, commercial-free music streaming as you drive your way to work. And I say potential because right now, SiriusXM and Pandora, they only operate in North America, which means there's so much potential for them if they were to open up the gates to do business in Europe, Asia, South America. But they're not doing it. They're still bullish about the car market. And I don't know. I don't see eye to eye with that. I feel like Pandora, for me, it's my preferred music streaming service, but it's not available here in Asia, so I can't use it. I don't get the hype behind Spotify. I try to use it, but I really don't like it. The whole playlist factor is just, it's not my cup of tea. I love Pandora and I love YouTube music. So as a product, I would argue SiriusXM is pretty good. But as an investment, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know what Warren Buffett sees in them. Actually, I know what he sees in them. I talk about it in the deep dive video. I think SiriusXM would be a D tier. It's below average. I don't think it makes sense in anyone's portfolio. But I will say this, if I had to invest into either, I don't know, Western Union versus SiriusXM, I would rather go with SiriusXM. And the next one is going to be Carter's, the baby apparel and baby clothing retailer. Ticker symbol CRI. And funny enough, I made a deep dive analysis video for Carter's because I'm expecting my first child in a matter of weeks. Between you and me, I'm freaking scared, nervous, first time dad. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I do not feel ready. The community of people around us have given us hand-me-down clothes, and a lot of the tags, well, it's Carter's. So it kind of made me want to research the company. And so if you want to know my thoughts and opinions about them, watch that video for the full deep dive. But anyways, right now, year to date, down by negative 47%. Gosh, this is also why a sector that I do not invest into, any of the retail clothing brands. Because what's hot today, they're not going to be hot tomorrow. It's such a cutthroat, competitive industry. And as a guy that used to be a model, had a lot of friends in the fashion space, they also quit within the first year or two because it's really, really cutthroat. Under Armour is another example of a very high quality product, retail brand, but man, they're also down by negative 39%. I'll give you another one, Crocs. I would argue Crocs has really good financials, but they're also suffering deeply because they are a clothing brand manufacturer. So it's just a space that I don't really like to go near. But anyways, if we jump on over to their financials, yeah, this is rough, okay? It's pretty much declining for the past 10 years. Yes, they did reach a pandemic high of in 2019, they reached 3.5 billion, but they just couldn't replicate that, right? I think their business model is predicated upon more people having babies, especially in the US. If less couples are having kids, then the customer base that they're trying to sell their products to gets limited. So they're not going to be able to generate more revenue. So the fact that their revenue is shrinking, it kind of makes sense to me. And when we take a look at their earnings per share, it's the same story here, all right? It's shrinking. Hopefully their dividend profile looks pretty. 11% dividend yield, really juicy. It's sustainable, but what I do want to call out is this number is absolutely inaccurate because their annual dividend is actually $1, meaning every quarter you get 25 cents. You times that by 4, it's $1. And they cut their dividend. It shrank by negative 33%. That's not good. Oh yeah, they cut their dividend during the pandemic, and then sure enough, they cut their dividend again a matter of 3 years later. Once you cut a dividend, you're always going to be cutting that dividend as soon as you face any discomfort or setback. So I think when it comes to Carter's, my baby's going to be wearing a lot of Carter's. My daughter, by the way. She's going to be wearing a lot of Carter's. So phenomenal products, but as an investment, I think they're also going to be right here next to Edgewell. It doesn't make sense. If you're investing into them, you got to tell me what am I missing? Because after doing a deep dive and an analysis on them where I spent 72 hours or 3 days researching them, reading their 10K and going through all their investor presentations, I just don't see a path of success for them. I think they'll still be around and they'll be decent, but I don't really see them being an explosive, aggressive growth company anytime soon. And the last one that I want to talk about is Huntington Ingalls, ticker symbol HII. And this is a lesser known military defense company that makes carriers, cruisers, destroyers, and even submarines for the United States Navy and Coast Guard. Year to date, they're up by 43%, and they're also featured in my most recent military stocks video that I just uploaded. Another shout out to it. You should go watch it because I really love the military sector. And let's see. Financials, Their revenue is a slightly flat year over year, and that's because they were dealing with human capital and experienced employees at the shipyards. I talk more about that in the military stocks video. But anyways, revenue looked pretty good up until this year. We'll just say relatively flat, okay? 11.5 billion, 11.5 billion. Take a look at their earnings per share, diluted $13.36. I mean, it goes up and down, but I would argue it's relatively stable. So $13.36, so their bottom line looks good. Revenue just looks meh, meaning average. Dividend profile, a 2% dividend yield. Payout ratio says it's sustainable and it's growing at a very decent rate. You love to see it. I think Huntington Ingalls, not bad across the board. And as I just alluded to with like Lockheed Martin, I'm pretty bullish about the military space. So when it comes to Huntington Ingalls, by the way, they just changed their logo. Now it looks like this. I think they're also going to be right next to Lockheed Martin, and they're slightly above average. And as we wrap up the video, I think a natural question some of you might be having is like, Amos, why are no bank stocks featured? That's because I made a dedicated ranking video towards the bank sector to figure out which ones are the best, which ones are the worst, just like the Mag 7. So I didn't want to repeat any company that was featured before. So watch that video if you're curious to know which bank stocks are truly worth your time and belong in your portfolio or my portfolio. And as a matter of fact, if you love this style of content where we break down a crap ton of stocks and we evaluate and grade them together, then you're probably gonna like the other ranking videos that I made on this channel. There's actually a playlist that has all of them. So go and watch that after this one. And my question to you before I sign out of here, because I've been filming for like 3 freaking hours, is which stock do you think I missed? A qualified dividend payer with a juicy yield that should have been featured here, but it just slipped my mind. Let me know, and I'll give you a bonus. Before I walk away, I'm gonna elevate one of the A tier stocks into the S tier. I personally think out of this entire group, the one that's gonna be the biggest, juiciest, cheesiest dividend compounder in the next 10 to 20 years is going to have to be UnitedHealth Group, ticker symbol UNH. I'll go on record by saying it right here. I think their valuation and their PE ratio right now, it just makes no sense for the numbers that they're generating. I really like UNH. Anyways, I love you guys. I hope you enjoy this ranking video. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Stay safe. Good luck in the stock market, and I'll talk to you next time. Peace.